Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Morgan Fox and Jason McDermitt? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Morgan Ashley Fox was born on August 22, 1991, in Marion County, Ohio. Eventually, she moved to North Canton. When she was 20, Morgan had a daughter named Amelia. Morgan worked as an operations manager for FedEx Ground. One time when she was working on an afternoon shift, she befriended another worker named Jason Allen McDermitt. Jason had been born on April 4, 1991, so he was about 4 months older than Morgan. He was extremely active online and had a particular affinity for video games. Eventually, Jason appeared to become obsessed with Morgan. For example, he talked about her constantly to other people and gave them the impression that he was close to her. He would bring Morgan food and drinks, and Jason secretly video recorded Morgan and her posts on the social media platform Snapchat. He used a special app which allowed him to circumvent the notification that a Snapchat user would normally receive if someone was trying to record their content. In August of 2020, Morgan trained a new employee named Mary. When Jason had conversations with Mary, he frequently talked about Morgan. He even showed Mary photographs of Morgan and of her daughter. Mary was so alarmed by Jason's behavior, she advised him to discontinue obsessing over Morgan and told him to stop texting her about Morgan. Jason also brought up the topic of Morgan frequently to coworkers named Mickey and Mark. He talked about Morgan's hair, her health, her daughter, how he attended a birthday party at her home, and how he wanted to be more than just Morgan's friend. Sometime around June 2020, Morgan and her daughter Amelia moved into a residence on Fraser Avenue with her boyfriend and her boyfriend's daughter. Not long after this, Morgan had a birthday party for her daughter. Several people were invited, including Jason McDermitt. As Morgan was giving tours of her home to guests, Jason acted as though he was a member of her family. For example, he put out food, introduced himself to everyone who arrived, followed Morgan around during the tours, and referred to Morgan's grandmother using the term Grandma. On October 8, 2020, an incident occurred which forever altered the course of the relationship between Morgan and Jason. While at work, Morgan left her cell phone unattended. Jason and 2 other coworkers took the phone and searched through its contents. Evidently, Morgan kept explicit images of herself on her phone, and there were indications that these images had been viewed. When Morgan confronted Jason over his betrayal and the violation of her privacy, he denied being involved, but later admitted his guilt. This incident was the last straw for Morgan. She blocked Jason on social media, expressed an interest in contacting human resources, and told others she wanted to change jobs. Morgan's relationship termination was not well received by Jason. He asked Mary, Mickey, and Mark to mediate with Morgan on his behalf, maintained a multitude of text messages, and made myriad calls to her mobile phone. Jason even wrote an apology letter, which he asked his coworkers to evaluate. The coworkers noticed changes in Jason's behavior after Morgan cut him out of her life. For example, Jason appeared to be unkempt, was not sleeping well, and was not eating properly. On October 24, 2020, Jason McDermitt sent Morgan Fox a text message asking how things were going in Columbus, Ohio. She was there visiting family members. Morgan responded by asking Jason how he knew that she was in Columbus. This was the last documented communication between Jason and Morgan. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On October 28, 2020, 29-year-old Morgan Fox was scheduled to start work at 2:30 a.m. As she was getting ready for work, her boyfriend woke up but went back to sleep. When her boyfriend woke up again, it was 6 a.m. As he was going to the kitchen to make breakfast, he noticed that Morgan's vehicle was still in the driveway. His vehicle was there as well. This was confusing to Morgan's boyfriend. He went outside to investigate and found Morgan unresponsive in the driver's seat of her vehicle. Morgan's boyfriend called 911 at 6:24 a.m. After the police arrived, they found that Morgan Fox was dead. Here's what the police found during their investigation. Morgan had been shot twice in the head with a .22 caliber firearm as she was sitting in her vehicle. Both her feet were on the ground outside her vehicle, as was her cell phone. There were no surveillance cameras covering the area, no spent cartridge cases were recovered at the scene, and none of her property was missing. Morgan was probably murdered sometime around 2 a.m. as she was getting ready to leave for work. The police spoke to Morgan's neighbors. None of them had seen or heard anything. Morgan's boyfriend had not heard any gunshots. There were tire tracks left at the scene. It appeared as though someone had left in a hurry because mud had been sprayed on a nearby fence from a spinning tire. On the day of the shooting, Jason clocked into work at 2:59 a.m. and left work at about 10 a.m. The police found video of Jason washing his blue Ford Focus hatchback at a Sheetz gas station later that day. This seemed odd because it was raining. At one point, when he was in the car wash, he backed up as if he wanted to get his vehicle extra clean. Jason typically did not keep his car clean. An analysis of the tire tracks found at the scene revealed that they were consistent with the tires mounted on Jason's car. A Ford Focus matching the description of Jason's car was captured on video at 1:38 a.m. at an intersection not far from Morgan's residence. It was headed east toward her residence. The same vehicle was captured driving west at 2:17 a.m. toward Jason's residence. The police learned about Jason McDermitt's creepy and obsessive behaviors regarding Morgan from multiple sources, including witnesses and electronic devices. On November 4, 2020, Jason McDermitt was arrested in connection with Morgan's death. He was later charged with aggravated murder and menacing by stalking. Jason McDermitt went to trial on April 2, 2021. He was found guilty of aggravated murder and menacing by stalking. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murder charge and 180 days for the menacing charge. The sentences are to be served concurrently. Now moving to my analysis. Jason McDermitt maintains his innocence, and there are quite a few people who support him. They argue that the case against him is circumstantial and weak. The state, of course, disagrees. They believe the evidence clearly demonstrates that Jason killed Morgan because she rejected him. This brings me to the question, was Jason McDermitt guilty of murder? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that he was guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. Morgan was shot twice in the head. Nothing was stolen from her. The area where Morgan lived had a low level of crime, and the tire tracks found at the scene were consistent with somebody trying to hide their vehicle from Morgan prior to the attack. This appeared to be a targeted killing. Jason did not own any firearms, but his father did. One of his father's guns, a Heritage Rough Rider .22 caliber revolver, could not be excluded as the murder weapon. The tire tracks found at the scene of Morgan's murder were consistent with the tires on Jason's car. He washed his car in the rain several hours after the murder. Jason drove to his parents' house, purportedly to give his mother a birthday gift, even though her birthday was in July. Jason was a little late with this gift. Perhaps he dropped off the revolver during this visit. A vehicle matching the description of Jason's car was captured going in the direction of Morgan's residence prior to the murder and going in the direction of his residence after the murder. Jason had accumulated a long history of creepy and boundary-crossing behaviors toward Morgan. He wanted to make it appear as though he was closer to Morgan than he actually was, as if they could someday be in a romantic relationship. Jason told his coworker Mark that Morgan was a close friend, but he hoped the relationship could grow into something more. 20 days prior to the murder, Jason searched through Morgan's phone, and Morgan discontinued their friendship. Jason desperately tried to convince her to change her mind. On the day of the murder, both Mary and Mickey noticed that Jason appeared to be happier and more cheerful. For example, he was smiling. They had not seen him smile in quite some time. Jason told Mary that he and Morgan had started talking again. Mary had her doubts about Jason's story because Morgan would have told her if she had started talking to Jason again. Jason showed Mary a photograph of a Christmas gift which he intended to purchase for Morgan. After looking over to where Morgan normally sat, Jason made a comment about how Morgan should be at work and he did not know where she was. On another occasion, Jason mentioned to a friend how he was concerned that the black box in his car could place him at the scene of the murder. He suggested that someone could have hacked the black box, or maybe a person with a spare key had stolen his car and then returned it. 3 days after the murder, Jason went to a Walmart store with Mickey. When they were there, he told her a story about an alleged sexual encounter with Morgan. Jason offered a high level of detail and said that now the encounter would just be a happy memory. He implied that he would not use the memory to facilitate self-service sexual experiences. 4 days after the murder, when Jason and Mickey were on their way to a vigil at Morgan's residence, Jason asked her if the traffic cameras recorded all the time or only if a motorist was speeding. After arriving at the vigil, Jason encountered Morgan's mother and daughter. As they were trying to leave, Jason moved between the open door and the vehicle so that Morgan's daughter Amelia could not close it. He told her that she was beautiful and looked just like her mother. Jason gave her a stuffed toy and said he did not want her to forget him. As this was happening, Morgan's mother repeatedly told Jason to get out of her car. On Skype, Jason was pretending to be a woman who was married to another woman. He wrote fictitious stories of a sexual nature. In June of 2020, he introduced Morgan as a character in these stories and even used images of her. He described a sexual encounter with Morgan that was identical to the story that he had relayed to Mickey in the Walmart store. Moving to the exculpatory factors, there were no witnesses to the murder, no video. .22 caliber cartridges found at the home of Jason McDermitt's parents did not match those used in the murder. The police tested Jason's hands for gunshot residue, but the test came back negative. A friend of Jason's testified that Jason was not angry with Morgan over the phone incident, and he did not see Jason acting in an unusual manner on the morning of October 28. Jason's phone was at his apartment from 4:02 p.m. on October 27 to 2:48 a.m. on October 28. Morgan was murdered sometime around 2 a.m. on October 28. Jason did not have access to Morgan's work schedule. Other men had recently pursued Morgan in addition to Jason. He wasn't the only man interested in her romantically. When considering all the evidence in this case, do I believe that Jason McDermitt was guilty of murder? Yes, I believe he was guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Here's what I think happened in this case. This is just a theory, my opinion. Jason McDermitt was self-centered, jealous, vindictive, petty, callous, and had a sense of entitlement. He was obsessed with Morgan Fox and repeatedly violated boundaries. This resulted in her ending their friendship. He decided to murder her after unsuccessfully attempting to get her back in his life. For Jason, the homicide was more than simply revenge or to prevent anyone else from being with Morgan. He needed to conclude the situation with this fantasy that he had a special relationship with Morgan. Jason told people that he was close to her. He posted a message on Facebook after her murder suggesting that he knew he could always talk to her if he was having a bad day. And he bragged about a sexual encounter, which almost certainly never happened. By killing Morgan, he believed he was solidifying this lie. Jason would not be a former friend and a stalker, rather he would live forever as Morgan's special companion. As far as his effort to escape responsibility, Jason was effective at concealing his involvement. There was no murder weapon, no DNA, no fingerprints, no witnesses, no video of the murder itself, and his cell phone was not at the murder scene. The problem for Jason is that he did not understand the human component. he didn't realize how his past stalking behavior would be viewed negatively. Jason may have assumed that everyone desired Morgan just as he did. Therefore, he wouldn't stand out as being unusual. Without the ability to empathize with others, he was left unaware of what people were really thinking about him. Now moving to my final thoughts. Jason's behavior fit with a type of stalker referred to as an intimacy stalker. He did not have a romantic relationship with Morgan, but he convinced himself he was destined to be with her. It's also possible he believed that Morgan secretly loved him, but she could not openly profess her love due to various restrictions, like already having a boyfriend. Many intimacy stalkers are delusional, although it's not clear if Jason was. He believed some things that were not true, but his beliefs may not have risen to the level of a delusion. I think Jason was searching for a way to keep his fantasy alive, which meant that Morgan had to be dead. One of the most dangerous signs a stalker can exhibit is when he acts as if he already has a close relationship with his victim. Instead of being open to the idea of rejection, he insists on the existence of a romance. Morgan's rejection of Jason had to be forever concealed in order for Jason to maintain his creepy fantasy. Those are my thoughts in the case of Morgan Fox and Jason McDermitt. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.